Hi Sanatt, how are you?
Hey Shubham, I'm doing good, man. How are you?
I'm good as well. I think so. Firstly, thank you for being the first person for the whatever I'm seeing starting this. But the thing is, actually, so before we actually start, I would just want you people to know that we have been friends for I don't know a number of years that I can still even count. But I think I can start
Yeah, way
from
too long.
there. Yeah, exactly. So I think I can start from eighth or sixth class. I can say from sixth,
Yeah.
there was pretty much a bond that was created between like six or seven of people between us. So since then, it's a long time. We did at least till our 12th. We were along by side. We did, I think, drama activities together. We were into debates together.
Yeah.
I've seen Sanath like in every single piece of not KC Public School. So the thing is, I would just explain Sanath as a he has multiple talents. I would say it's not just studies, not just coding, not just football, not just acting. I think just all is combination of all these things. So I think this is a brief introduction about Sanath from me. Now, actually, I'll request Sanath to introduce himself to the audience, whoever would be listening to this. Sanath.
Yeah. So I'm gonna act all humble and pretend I don't do all of what you said. So I'll just give a short introduction about me. I am a software engineer and I'm working at Microsoft for past 2 years. And this is my first job out of university. So I was a campus hire. And since then, I'm working on Bing. So we are building new visual experiences for enterprise customers who come to Bing. And that's it. That's about myself.
Perfect, perfect. So I think Microsoft, because so for me I can say Microsoft was like I would consider still as one of the dream companies Microsoft to get into. Again, I'm still not into coding. Again, wasn't in my college time as well. But again, Microsoft is a
Mhm.
company for many of the people. So I think firstly we can start our question like, how was your interview experience in college? Like, how many rounds or whatever you
Right.
explain.
So the interview was very straightforward. So it's split into multiple rounds, and each round was sort of like a knockout. So if you don't do well in this round, you won't be there for the next one. So the first one is basically just an online coding test. So you are giving like an hour and you have to solve like three problems. And based on how you perform on those problems, you are selected for the second round. And the second round, this differs in different campuses. Like Microsoft could conduct it in different ways in different campuses. In our case, it was a pen and paper round. So basically, by pen and paper means they'll give you a very vague problem which doesn't has a very clear description or a clear set of parameters to work with. So in our case, we got a problem on how to design an air traffic control system. So it's like that. So you have to write a little bit of code, and basically you just have to tackle this problem in a way you would tackle this in a real way, right? How to, it's up to you how you figure out what are the stakeholders of this problem and everything. And then we come up to the actual interviews. So the actual interviews are split into 3 or 4 rounds, depending on how you perform. In my case, it was 2 technical rounds and 1 managerial round. But in some cases, I've seen people do 3 technical rounds and 1 managerial. So the technical rounds are mostly around your data structure and algorithm problems. So you could pick any language that you want. Microsoft doesn't care as long as you know how to, uh, you know, um, solve that particular problem with appropriate data structures and algorithms, and you know your time complexities and space complexities and so on. And if you do well, then you are basically sent to a managerial round. So managerial round will be just a little bit discussion of your past internships, if you have done any, or your past projects. And basically they're trying to assess what kind of a person you are and whether you would fit into their culture. So if you're already there to the managerial round, that's a very good news, which means that you have done well in the technical rounds. And the managerial round is basically just about how you would fit in Microsoft as Sanatt itself. So they want you to be your own individual best self, and
Mhm.
that's it. They just want to see if you fit in the culture or not. So
So
that was my interview experience. Yeah.
perfect. So can we consider this managerial round somewhat like an HR round that we have, or still different than that?
Right. So it's not within HR. So I think the HR round, the questions are um, a little bit different. So the managerial round is still on the technical side, but again, the aspect that they are checking in you is your behavioral part, like how you would perform as a, how you would fit in Microsoft's culture. That's basically what they're assessing you, but it's still on the technical side. Like they would pick some question or on your past project and say how you did that, what was the reason for doing that, how you could have done it differently. So your answers, they would still expect them to be technical, and but the actual assessing part is more behavioral than technical. So
So
it's not entirely like an HR.
perfect. So when you talk about the case study that they provide you to solve it, so are these always
Right.
real world problems, or they can be
Mhm.
imaginary or something like it that cannot exist?
So it's actually could be a very vague problem. Something like uh, design Facebook or something like that. So if someone asks you to design Facebook, they're not saying design everything, like design the profile section, design the friends part or everything.
Mm.
They just want you to come up with the best thing that you can in those 40-45 minutes that they give you. And you have to write everything on a paper. So you don't have to like, write a code which runs or code which compiles and executes. You don't have to worry about that. But they just want to see how you approach a problem or how you tackle a problem. And it could be very vague, or maybe they don't do a vague problem and they could just do a simple coding problem and expect you to solve it on a piece of paper. So it's different. Like it depends on which Microsoft team goes to your campus. I think it's very different. And the problem is very vague. It could be anything.
So when we talk about the problem, so I can just I'll just give you a brief about, in case of case studies, we do ask questions from our side only, just to get an
Mhm.
of an idea what actually the interviewer wants us to say. So is it like you need
Right.
more of the question that you need to, have an input post the question has been asked, or it's just that, you're done with the question and then it's just
Mhm.
doing the complete work?
So imagine it this way: like if I ask you to design a air traffic controller, then you don't have to think about the, what are the stakeholders in the problem, right? You know what an air traffic controller does.
Uh-huh.
Its
Uh-huh.
job is to assign a runway to what, it manage departures, manage
Uh-huh.
arrivals, and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is what they expect you to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then it could be possible that there is a emergency in one of the flights and that needs to be settled in faster, or it needs to arrive before any other flight. So they want you to think of all these situations which could come up
Oh,
in real life and
okay.
then come up with the solution to that. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Which is like more than the normal, actually.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean they'll just ask you very vaguely that design an air traffic controller system. You are free to think of any constraints or any thing else, and just solve it with the best knowledge that you have. So it's something like that.
Perfect. So
Right.
if I talk about, let's say I am Shubham Safaya, so I'm trying to get into Microsoft. So
Mhm.
I create a resume. Let's
Right.
trying to keep it again in one page only. So I share it with you, and you are a person who's interviewing me, and you're from the recruitment team. So,
Yep.
let's say I'll consider two scenarios. First, while you are checking out my resume and you have
Mhm.
either select me or reject me. And then the second
Right.
would be once I am being selected in the form, like for the interview. So, how much
Mhm.
is the value? I mean, I agree to the fact that resume values before you are applying because you need to get firstly select
Right.
resume basis. But then after
Yep.
resume is shortlisted, then how much impact does the resume have while you're being interviewed?
A lot actually, because so I would say almost 90% of your technical interviews are just on your problem solving skills, like your data structures and algorithms, that knowledge. But the 10%, right? It's more on how, like for example, if you interview at a company called like Amazon, so they ask a lot of leadership principles, and
Mhm.
you have to come up with those stories based on your resume. Like for example, if you did an internship or if you did a project, right, and they want you to share an experience where you took a risk and it worked off and it paid off, and then you could say that, okay, when I was working on this project, we were developing this, but this technology, it was not fully in production, but I still took the risk. And like you could come up with these situations. So that resume still plays a value, but again, the resume is more important to get screened through the resume screening. That's the
Uh-huh.
main job of
Uh-huh.
the
Uh-huh.
resume. But again,
Uh-huh.
it's still important, it could come up later. So yeah,
So,
you need
so
to have
I
a good resume.
so why I'm trying to ask this question is that because let's say people definitely try to tweak a resume a bit. Like they don't like write if I got just 8 CGPA,
Right.
so they'll try to write okay,
Mhm.
I had 8.4 or something like that. Like not definitely
Yep.
CGA part, but let's assume might be some internship or something like that. So
Mhm.
as I said, as we speak about tweaking a resume a bit so that it
Yep.
it is a perfect fit for Microsoft. So like that, in that way, like how easily can someone interviewing from Microsoft catch that?
Never do that, I would say. So if you talk about your like lying about your grades or lying about your internships and everything, never do that, because whenever if they actually hire you, you're going to submit all of those transcripts and all of those past experiences, and they do a full background check on you. So if they find out that you haven't worked where you claim to have worked, then that's a big problem. And the other thing is that I've seen people, because they want good projects on their resume, so they lie about that they have done these projects.
Mhm.
But if someone actually asks you about them in your interview, then you're screwed, right? Because you don't
Mhm.
know them in depth.
Agreed.
So
Agreed.
I would say never lie about anything in your resume, and better to have a resume with things you are pretty confident on and pretty, them like a back of your hand. So better to have that than just blatantly lying about something and then getting into awkward situations later. So I would not recommend that.
So, I mean, my perfect, Jason. So, I think my next question is with regards to, let's say, there are
Mhm.
two things to it. Once you get placed from college, and then they might be
Yeah,
who try to switch from college, and they try to switch into college, then into Microsoft after moving out from college from X company to Microsoft. So,
yeah.
do you? I mean, definitely because you were a college placed person. So, let's say
Mhm.
if I ask, how would you rate yourself, or how would you consider yourself being in a place, either getting referred by someone and then getting into Microsoft, or trying to get into Microsoft, or trying through the college placement process, which you would find is tougher
Right.
or easier?
It's pretty situational, actually. I would say, because see, when you are applying through a college, and then when Microsoft visits your college, they usually have a good idea in their head, like how many people they want to hire. Like if you have a very good university and they have been hiring like 10, 15 people every year from your university, then you expect that trend to continue. But if they only hire like two or three folks from your university, then don't expect they'll suddenly hire 15 or 20, right? So so it's pretty situational, I would say. And in some cases, it might actually be very difficult, because
Mhm.
Microsoft is some of the companies which come to day first in your campus, which means
Mhm.
you'll be sitting for them on day first on your campus. So you have all of your colleagues and uh, people you have spent 4 years with, and all of them are trying so hard to get into Microsoft. So it could be very difficult. Going through the referral route is actually more about being the right fit for the role itself, right? So,
Mhm.
because if you're getting hired as a campus hire, they just want you based on your, fundamental and basic knowledge of computer science. They're not hiring you for a Java developer or for a C# developer or for a web developer, right? Or for an AI. developer. They're hiring you based on your fundamentals, and then they put you into these roles. But when you come from the referral route, the referral is, even though it is important, but the main factor is that you should be right fit for the actual job itself. So if the job is in a team which does web development, you should be a web developer. If the job is in a team which does AI, you should have an AI background. So so it's pretty situational in both cases, right? If you are going from the campus route, then maybe you just have to compete with your peers and your friends. And if you're going to the referral route, you have to be the right fit for the job itself. So both, I think Microsoft does hiring like very frequently, right? For all roles across the board. So to get in at campus stage is easier, or to get in like a couple of years later, I think it's hard to say. So both are great options to get into. So it just depends on when you get lucky, right? In my case, it was the same. So I got lucky in my campus time. So I got there. So it's just about that.
But yeah, actually, so I agree to the fact, you need to be specific while you're applying, because once you're through the referral process, there might be a possibility that they mostly hire for the specific roles. So you need to have this idea or criteria for the roles. Let's say if someone, so, I'm sure Safaya, I'm trying to get into Microsoft. But the thing is, I'm not pretty sure about which specific role would apply to me. And I would not say jack of all trades, but let's say I talk about let's say I do two things that are two different parallel paths in Microsoft, but I'm not the best in both. I'm decent in both of them. So like consider us for the interview, and then, whatever they find fruitful for us or fruitful for them, and then eventually land that specific role.
So it depends on what kind of role it is, right? So if for example, if it's a junior to mid role, by junior to mid, I mean someone who has like less than 5 years of experience, then they would be hiring for a very general profile, right? It won't be very specific. So for example, if there is a team, there's a role open in a team which does backend work, and maybe you haven't done backend ever, right? And you have like a couple of years experience, so you were doing front end somewhere, then it doesn't matter, because in your interviews, they'll only judge you based on, again, your data structure and algorithm competency. But if, let's say, you're applying for a senior role, right? So if the senior role, they expect you to come in and start, creating impact as soon as you arrive. And for a senior role, if it's a backend team, they want you to have a backend experience. Otherwise, you can't be someone who has done 6 or 7 years of front end work and then you can come in backend, right? That would be very hard. I mean, I would imagine, if not impossible, that would be super hard. So it's very general. If you're on a low, like junior to mid role, then it's fine. I don't think there's enough to worry about that. But still, there is some things like if you, for example, if the role is for an AI software developer, and if you have no clue of what AI is, right? You have never worked on AI, then that's a big problem. So yeah, I think it's a mix of both worlds. You need to have um, a background with what they're looking to hire, but it doesn't have to be an exact 100 to one matches. And if you look at the job descriptions, right? The job descriptions, they won't say we need a backend developer who has worked on microservices and so on, right? It will be very general for junior roles, like 1 or 2 years of experience. But as you go up, it will become more specific. They want someone who has worked on this technology, who has worked on this tech stack, who has this many years of experience building APIs, who knows how to scale and everything. So it goes, the specificity goes up as soon as you move up the career ladder.
Perfect. Actually, that's a clear understanding. I'm able to understand that how things work. I mean, definitely, because in such span of time, we will not be able to cover the complete process how we go through it. It's definitely hard, one, and two. So considering all these, perfect. I think this was a great brief about everything. And actually, Sanatt, let's say if people do have questions like what to get into, or let's say, they want to ask questions about the referral process. So
Mhm.
I'll be definitely sharing your LinkedIn profile in the comment section. So would it be okay with you? Like, will you be able to answer questions? Then we can ask them.
Yeah. Yeah, if the viewers have anything to ask, you can just drop by in the comments, and I'll be more than happy to reach them out and answer them. And if someone is looking for referrals, so it's actually I think like asking for a referral and giving someone referral, it works both ways, right? Because if
Uh-huh.
I'm giving a referral to a strong candidate, then
Mhm.
I'll get a bonus if they get hired. So
Uh-huh.
so it works both ways. So
Uh-huh.
if you ever want to referral from someone, just look them up on LinkedIn, search for them, and ask them nicely that, hey, I want a referral for this job. This is my resume. This is how many years of experience that I have. Can you please refer me? And in most cases, I think people would be more than happy to refer you. So yeah, if there's anything, if you have any questions or any advice or anything, just drop that in the comments. I'll be more than happy to answer.
Perfect. Well, I think that's enough from my end. Actually, that's a definitely complete brief of whatever
Right.
we had to. And
No worries.
again, thanks for being the first one. I know
Sure.
I don't know how these things will go, but definitely I think I did have a great start and a great conversation with you.
Good. All the best. All the best for you. All the best to whoever is watching this. And hopefully we can do this once again, maybe with
Sure,
a different topic, right?
sure, definitely.
Cool.
Thank you so much, Sanatt. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah. Sure. No problem, buddy.
Bye.